The massive ship called Nexus Prime floated above a planet that nobody had ever seen before. The planet was brown and green with 3 small moons spinning around it. Dr. Vextari stood at the main window looking down at the world below. She had 4 arms that moved like water and skin that changed colors when she was excited. Right now her skin was bright purple because she was very happy about what they had found. The planet had ruins on it. Big stone buildings that were older than anything the galaxy had ever discovered. The buildings were made from black stone that seemed to shine in the sunlight. Nobody knew who built them or when they were made. The aliens who found this place called it Planet Zero because it might be where the first smart beings in the galaxy lived. Jake Morrison walked into the room, carrying his morning coffee. He was the only human on the ship, and sometimes he felt strange being around so many different alien species. Jake worked as a communications officer, which meant he helped different aliens talk to each other when their languages got mixed up. He was good at his job because humans were good at seeing patterns that other species missed. The ship had been here for 2 weeks already. Every day, the alien scientists went down to the planet to study the ruins. They brought back pictures and stone pieces and strange metal objects. But the most interesting things they found were the symbols. Thousands and thousands of symbols, carved into stone walls and metal plates. Dr. Vextari turned to look at Jake when he entered the room. Her forearms were moving fast as she worked on 3 different computers at the same time. She could do this because her brain was much bigger than a human brain and worked faster too. "Good morning, Jake," she said in her voice that sounded like music. "We found something very important yesterday. Do you want to see it?" Jake nodded and walked closer to her workstation. On the biggest screen, he could see pictures from inside one of the ruins. The pictures showed a huge room with walls covered in symbols. But in the center of the room was something amazing. It was a giant archway made of the same black stone as the buildings. The archway was as tall as 3 humans standing on top of each other. The most incredible thing about the archway was that every inch of it was covered in symbols. Not just random symbols, but symbols that seemed to form patterns and designs. Some symbols were big and some were small. Some were carved deep into the stone and others were just scratched on the surface. "What do you think it is?" Jake asked while drinking his coffee. Dr. Vextari made a sound that was like a sigh but more musical. "We think it might be a door or a gate, but we cannot figure out how to open it. The symbols might be instructions, but nobody can read them. We have tried everything." Jake looked at more pictures on the other screens. The symbols were unlike anything he had ever seen. They looked a little bit like Egyptian hieroglyphs, but also like Chinese characters and also like mathematical equations. Some symbols had straight lines and others had curves. Some looked like pictures of animals or plants and others looked completely abstract. "How many different symbols are there?" Jake asked. "We have counted over 2,000 different ones, so far," Dr. Vextari replied. "But some symbols appear many times and others appear only once. We think there might be a pattern, but we cannot find it." The door to the room opened and 3 more aliens walked in. The first one was Dr. Kethmoran, who looked like a giant blue spider with 6 legs and 8 eyes. He was the best mathematician in the galaxy and could solve problems that would take human computers years to figure out. The second alien was Professor Zilanatha, who was tall and thin like a tree branch. She had a mouth that could make sounds in frequencies that humans could not even hear. She knew more languages than anyone else in the known universe. The third alien was Commander Thexpol, who looked like he was made of metal and crystal. His species did not have names for emotions because they thought with pure logic. He was a military expert who had won every battle he ever fought by thinking 10 steps ahead of his enemies. "Any progress on the symbols?" Dr. Kethmoran asked as he climbed up the wall to get a better view of the screens. His 8 eyes could look at different things at the same time, which made him very good at spotting patterns. "Nothing yet," Dr. Vextari answered. "We have run the symbols through every decoding program we have. We tried treating them as a mathematical code and as a musical notation system. We even tried seeing if they were a star map or a chemical formula. Nothing works. Professor Zilanatha made a low humming sound that meant she was thinking hard. Perhaps they are not a language at all, she sighed. Maybe they are decorative art or religious symbols that have no actual meaning, Commander Thexpol disagreed. The symbols are too organized to be random decoration, he said in his voice that sounded like a computer. There's definitely a pattern. Here, we just need to find the right approach. Jake finished his coffee and continued looking at the pictures. Something about the symbols seemed familiar to him, but he could not figure out what it was. He had seen patterns like this before, but where? The symbols seemed to connect to each other in interesting ways. Some symbols appeared to share parts with other symbols, and some symbols seemed to be grouped together while others stood alone. Can I get copies of these pictures? Jake asked. I would like to study them in my free time. Dr. Vextari was surprised. You want to try solving this puzzle too? She asked. Our best experts have been working on it for weeks, Jake shrugged. Maybe a human perspective might help, he said. Sometimes when you look at something too hard, you miss the obvious answer. Dr. Vextari smiled, which made her skin turn a light green color. Of course, she said. I will send all the pictures to your personal tablet. Who knows, maybe fresh. Eyes will see something we missed. As Jake left the room to start his regular duties, he thought about the symbols. There was something about them that reminded him of something from Earth, but he could not remember what. He decided to look at them more carefully when he had free time later that day. 3 days had passed since Dr. Vextari gave Jake the symbol pictures, and the alien experts were getting frustrated. Every morning they met in the main research room to share their findings, and every morning they had nothing new to report. The symbols remained as mysterious as the day they were discovered. Dr. Kethmoran had tried every mathematical approach he could think of. He treated the symbols like equations and tried to solve them. He looked for numerical patterns in geometric relationships. He even tried to see if the symbols represented different mathematical concepts like addition or multiplication. His 8 eyes would scan the pictures for hours while his 6 legs tapped nervously on the floor. But nothing worked. Professor Zilanatha had approached the problem from a linguistic angle. She compared the symbols to every known language in the Galaxy database. She looked for grammar patterns and sentence structures. She tried to find root words and prefixes and suffixes. Her species could process language information much faster than most other aliens, but even her advanced brain could not crack the code. Commander Thexpol used his military training to analyze the symbols like they were enemy battle plans. He looked for strategic patterns and tactical formations. He tried to see if the symbols represented troop movements or weapon systems, or defensive positions. His logical mind processed every possible military interpretation, but found no matches. The 3 experts had also brought in other specialists to help. There was Dr. Yintera, who was an expert in ancient civilizations. She had studied the ruins of 12 different extinct species and could usually figure out their writing systems within a few days. But these symbols were different from anything she had ever encountered. They also consulted with Professor Kelmite, who specialized in religious and spiritual texts. Many ancient civilizations use symbols to represent their gods and beliefs. He spent hours looking for religious patterns and mythological references, but found nothing that made sense. Even the ship's advanced artificial intelligence system called Arya could not help. Arya could process information millions of times faster than any biological brain and had access to the complete knowledge database of the Galactic Consortium. But when they fed the symbols into Arya's analysis programs, the computer just returned error messages saying that no patterns could be found. Dr. Vexthari was beginning to worry that they might never solve the mystery. The Galactic Consortium had sent them to this planet with high expectations. They were supposed to unlock the secrets of this ancient civilization and report back with their findings. But after weeks of work, they were no closer to understanding the symbols than when they first arrived. The pressure was getting to everyone on the team. Dr. Kethmoran had stopped eating regularly because he was so focused on the mathematical analysis. Professor Zilanatha was making stress sounds that hurt everyone's ears. Commander Thexpol's crystal parts were flickering, which meant his logic circuits were overloaded. Meanwhile, Jake went about his normal duties on the ship. He helped translate conversations between different alien species and maintained the communication systems, but in his free time he found himself staring at the symbol pictures on his tablet. There was something about them that kept drawing his attention. The symbols seemed almost familiar to Jake, like he had seen something similar before, but he could not remember where. Some of the symbols looked like they might be letters from an alphabet, while others looked more like pictures or drawings. And some symbols appeared to be combinations of other symbols, like they were made by putting smaller pieces together. Jake noticed that certain symbols appeared more often than others. There were maybe 50 symbols that showed up again and again throughout all the pictures. These common symbols seemed to connect different groups of rarer symbols. It reminded Jake of something, but he could not figure out what. One evening, Jake was in the ship's recreation area looking at the pictures when Dr. Vexthari sat down next to him. Her skin was a dull gray color, which meant she was tired and discouraged. "Still working on the symbols?" she asked. Jake nodded. "I keep feeling like I have seen something like this before, but I cannot remember what it was." Dr. Vexthari sighed. "We are running out of ideas," she said. "The consortium is expecting a progress report soon, and we have nothing to tell them. Maybe these symbols really are just decorative art with no meaning." "I do not think so," Jake said. "Look at how organized they are, and see how some symbols connect to others. There is definitely a system here." Dr. Vexthari looked at Jake's tablet screen. "You have been studying these for days now. Do you see any patterns that we missed?" Jake pointed to one section of symbols. "These symbols here seem to be grouped together like they belong to each other. And this symbol appears in multiple groups, like it connects them somehow. It reminds me of something from Earth, but I cannot think of what." Dr. Vexthari was interested. "What kinds of symbol systems do humans use on Earth?" Jake thought about it. "We have alphabets for writing words. We have numbers for mathematics. We have musical notation for songs. We have maps for navigation. And we have lots of games and puzzles that use symbols." "Games and puzzles," Dr. Vexthari repeated. "We have not considered that possibility." "Could these symbols be some kind of game?" Jake shrugged. "Maybe humans love puzzles and word games. We have crossword puzzles and word searches and logic puzzles. Some of our games use grids where symbols intersect and connect." Dr. Vexthari's skin started to turn yellow, which meant she was getting excited. "That is a very interesting idea. Tomorrow I will ask the team to consider the possibility that these symbols might be a puzzle or game, rather than a traditional writing system." The next morning, Dr. Vexthari shared Jake's idea with the other experts. At first they were skeptical. Dr. Kethmoran said that advanced ancient civilizations would not waste time on games. Professor Zilanatha argued that important information would not be encoded as entertainment. Commander Thexpol thought it was illogical to use puzzles for serious communication, but Dr. Vexthari convinced them to try the puzzle approach. They started looking at the symbols as game pieces rather than letters or numbers. They tried to find rules and objectives like in a board game. They looked for winning conditions and scoring systems. However, even this new approach did not work. The alien experts did not understand human-style puzzles and games. Their species had different types of entertainment that did not involve wordplay or pattern matching. They were trying to apply their own logical thinking to something that required a different kind of intelligence. After another week of failed attempts, the team was more frustrated than ever. They had tried every approach they could think of, and nothing worked. The symbols remained unsolved, and the archway remained sealed. Jake was sitting in the ship's recreation area during his lunch break. He had finished eating and was relaxing with his tablet. The alien experts were still working on the symbols in the research room, but Jake needed a break from thinking about the mystery. Instead, he decided to work on something fun and familiar. He opened his favorite crossword puzzle app on his tablet. The app had thousands of different puzzles from easy to very difficult. Jake enjoyed crosswords because they challenged his brain in a relaxing way. He liked figuring out the clues and finding words that fit perfectly into the grid. Today's puzzle was called Ancient Mysteries, and it was marked as expert level. Jake smiled because the theme seemed appropriate given what was happening on the ship. The first clue was entrance to hidden chamber, and the answer was 7 letters. Jake thought for a moment and typed doorway into the grid dot. As he continued working on the puzzle, Jake found himself thinking about the alien symbols again. He could not help it because the mystery was so interesting. The crossword clue symbol of passage made him think about the archway they had discovered. The answer was gateway, which fit perfectly into the intersecting spaces. Jake had always been good at crossword puzzles because he understood how they worked. Each word had to fit with the other words around it. Letters were shared between intersecting words. The same letter could be part of multiple different words. And sometimes you had to figure out a difficult word by solving the easier words around it first. As Jake worked on more clues, he started to notice something strange. The way the crossword grid looked with its black and white squares and intersecting words reminded him of something. He pulled up the alien symbol pictures on his tablet and looked at them next to the crossword puzzle. Suddenly, Jake's eyes went wide. The arrangement of the alien symbols looked very similar to a crossword puzzle grid. There were symbols that seemed to intersect with other symbols just like letters intersect in a crossword. Some symbols appeared multiple times in different locations, just like how the same letter can appear in multiple words. Jake's heart started beating faster as he realized what he might be seeing. What if the alien symbols were not a traditional language at all? What if they were actually a giant crossword puzzle? The symbols that appeared most often could be like common letters such as E or A, or T. The symbols that appeared less often could be like rare letters such as X or Z. He looked more carefully at the pictures and the pattern became clearer. The symbols were arranged in a grid-like formation with some symbols connecting to others. Just like in a crossword puzzle where words intersect and share letters, the symbols seemed to intersect and share meaning. Jake remembered how Dr. Vextari had mentioned that some symbols appeared in multiple groups while others appeared only once. In crossword puzzles, the most common letters appear in many different words while rare letters might only appear once or twice. This was exactly the same pattern. Jake also remembered how the symbols seemed to be organized into groups. In crossword puzzles, words are organized by length and direction. Short words fit into small spaces while long words need longer spaces. Some words go across and others go down. The alien symbols showed similar organization patterns. The more Jake studied the pictures, the more convinced he became that he was looking at an enormous crossword puzzle carved in stone. But this was not just any crossword puzzle. This was a puzzle that covered an entire archway and contained thousands of symbols. It would be the most complex crossword puzzle ever created. Jake quickly finished his lunch and headed to the research room. He found Dr. Vextari working alone while the other experts were taking a break. Her skin was a tired gray color and her forearms moved slowly as she typed on her computers. "Dr. Vextari," Jake said excitedly. "I think I know what the symbols are." She looked up from her work with surprise. "You do?" she asked. "What is your theory?" Jake sat down next to her and pulled out his tablet. He showed her the crossword puzzle he had been working on and then showed her the alien symbol pictures. "Look at how similar these patterns are," he said. "The symbols are arranged like a crossword puzzle grid with intersections and shared elements." Dr. Vextari studied both images carefully. Her skin started to change from gray to yellow as she became more interested. "That is a very unusual idea," she said. "But I can see some similarities in the patterns." How would a crossword puzzle work with these symbols? Jake pointed to different parts of the symbol arrangements. "See how this symbol appears here and here and here," he said. In a crossword puzzle, the same letter can be part of multiple words. And see how these symbols seem to connect in a line. Just like words in a crossword go across or down. Dr. Vextari was getting excited. Her skin turned bright orange, which meant she thought this was a very important discovery. If you are correct, then the archway is not just decorated with symbols. It is actually a giant puzzle that needs to be solved. Exactly, Jake said. And maybe solving the puzzle is how you open the archway. The ancient civilization might have used puzzles as a way to test intelligence. Only someone smart enough to solve the crossword would be worthy of whatever is behind the door. Dr. Vexthari called the other experts back to the research room immediately. When Dr. Kethmoran and Professor Zilanatha and Commander Thexpol arrived, she explained Jake's crossword theory to them. At first they were skeptical because they had never heard of using puzzles as locks or barriers, but when Jake showed them the pattern, similarities between crosswords and the alien symbols, they began to understand. Dr. Kethmoran's 8 eyes studied the arrangements, and he started to see the mathematical relationships between intersecting symbols. Professor Zilanatha began to recognize how the symbols could function like letters in a linguistic system. Commander Thexpol saw the logical structure that connected different symbol groups. "This is brilliant," Dr. Vexthari said. "We have been trying to decode the symbols as a traditional writing system, but they are actually puzzle pieces. We need to solve them like a crossword puzzle instead of translating them like a language." Jake felt proud that his human perspective had helped the alien experts see the problem in a new way. The question now is, how do we solve a crossword puzzle when we do not know what language it is in or what the clues are? Dr. Kethmoran clicked his legs together, which was how his species showed excitement. "We can use mathematical analysis to find the most common symbol combinations and the most likely intersection points. Pattern recognition will help us identify the puzzle structure." Professor Zilanatha hummed a complex melody that meant she was thinking hard. "And I can apply linguistic analysis to determine which symbols might represent vowels or consonants based on their frequency and position patterns." Commander Thexpol's crystal parts glowed brighter as his logic circuits processed this new information. "Once we understand the basic structure, we can work systematically to fill in the missing pieces using deductive reasoning." Dr. Vexthari's skin was now bright purple with excitement. "Jake, your insight may have just solved the greatest archaeological mystery in galactic history. Let us begin working on this crossword puzzle immediately." The research team worked through the night applying Jake's crossword theory to the alien symbols. Jake sat with Dr. Vexthari at the main workstation while the other experts used their specialized skills to analyze different aspects of the puzzle. The room buzzed with excitement as patterns began to emerge from what had previously seemed like random symbols. Dr. Kethmoran used his mathematical abilities to map out the grid structure of the archway. His 8 eyes could track multiple symbol relationships simultaneously while his 6 legs worked on different calculation tablets. He discovered that the symbols were arranged in a precise geometric pattern with exactly 47 rows and 63 columns of intersecting spaces. "The mathematical precision is incredible," Dr. Kethmoran announced. "Every symbol placement follows perfect geometric rules, just like the grid lines in human crossword puzzles. But this puzzle is much larger and more complex than any puzzle humans have ever created." Professor Zilanatha focused on identifying which symbols might represent vowels and consonants. In most languages, vowels appear more frequently than consonants and are often found at the intersections of multiple words. She began categorizing the symbols based on their frequency and position patterns. "I have identified 23 symbols that appear very frequently throughout the puzzle," she reported. "These are most likely the vowel sounds of whatever language this puzzle uses. I have also found 64 symbols that appear less frequently but in consistent patterns. These are probably consonant sounds." Commander Thexpol worked on mapping the logical connections between different sections of the puzzle. His military training helped him see strategic relationships and tactical patterns that the others might miss. He noticed that certain symbol groups seemed to form clusters around key intersection points. "The puzzle appears to have multiple layers of meaning," Commander Thexpol observed. "There are obvious word-level solutions, but also larger pattern connections between different sections. It is like a battle plan where individual tactics combine to create an overall strategy." As the experts shared their findings, Jake began to see how the puzzle might work. The ancient civilization had created a crossword puzzle that was also a complex locking mechanism. Solving individual words would activate different parts of the archway, but the complete solution required understanding. How all the parts worked together, Dr. Vestari coordinated the team's efforts while also running advanced computer analysis on the symbol patterns. Her 4 arms allowed her to process multiple data streams simultaneously. As more patterns emerged, her skin shifted through different colors, reflecting her changing emotional states. "Look at this," Dr. Vestari said as she highlighted a section of the puzzle on the main screen. "These symbols form a clear word pattern, and when Jake's crossword logic is applied, they seem to spell out something that translates roughly to Gateway of Worthy Minds." Jake leaned forward to study the highlighted section. The symbols did seem to follow crossword rules with shared intersections and consistent spacing. "That makes sense," he said. "The ancient civilization wanted to make sure that only intelligent beings could open their gateway. You have to prove your mental abilities by solving their puzzle." As Dawn approached, the team had made remarkable progress. They had identified the basic structure of the puzzle and solved several individual word sections. Each solved section caused corresponding areas of the archway to glow with soft blue light according to the reports from the exploration teams on the planet's surface. But the complete solution still eluded them. The puzzle was more complex than any crossword Jake had ever seen. It had multiple levels of meaning, with some symbols representing individual letters, while others represented entire concepts or ideas. Some clues seemed to be mathematical equations, while others appeared to be riddles or philosophical questions. "We need to go down to the planet," Jake suggested. "I think we need to see the actual archway to understand how the puzzle really works. Looking at pictures on a screen is not the same as seeing the real thing." Dr. Vestari agreed and arranged for a shuttle to take the team down to the planet's surface. The ancient ruins were even more impressive in person than they appeared in photographs. The black stone buildings stretched across several kilometers and seemed to pulse with mysterious energy. The archway itself was breathtaking. It stood 30 meters tall and was covered from top to bottom with thousands of intricately carved symbols. The symbols that the team had already solved glowed with blue light, while the unsolved sections remained dark. The overall effect was like looking at a giant puzzle that was partially completed. Jake walked up to the archway and placed his hand on the stone surface. The material was warm to the touch and seemed to vibrate slightly. As he studied the symbols up close, he began to notice details that had not been visible in the photographs. "The symbols are not just carved into the stone," Jake observed. "They are actually separate pieces that can be moved or rotated. This is not just a crossword puzzle, it is an interactive crossword puzzle where you physically manipulate the symbols to spell out the answers." Dr. Vestari's skin turned bright gold as she realized the implications. "That explains why some sections are glowing and others are not. The sections we solved correctly are locked in place, while the unsolved sections are still waiting for the right combination." Working together, the team began manipulating the movable symbols according to their crossword analysis. Jake's intuitive understanding of puzzle logic guided their efforts, while the alien experts provided the analytical power needed to solve the complex clues. As they worked, Jake noticed that the puzzle had a central theme related to intelligence testing and mental challenges. The clues asked questions about logic and creativity and problem-solving abilities. It was as if the ancient civilization had designed the ultimate intelligence test. This civilization really valued mental ability over physical strength or technological advancement, Jake realized. They believed that true wisdom came from being able to think creatively and solve problems in unexpected ways. Hour by hour, more sections of the archway began to glow as the team solved additional parts of the puzzle. The blue light spread outward from each completed section, creating beautiful patterns across the stone surface. But the final central section remained dark and unresponsive. "We are missing something," Dr. Vestari said as she studied the remaining unsolved symbols. "The individual word puzzles are complete, but there must be a master solution that ties everything together." Jake stepped back and looked at the entire archway from a distance. Suddenly he saw it. The glowing sections formed their own pattern when viewed as a whole. The blue light spelled out a message in the same symbol language they had been decoding. "The final answer is not in the remaining dark sections," Jake announced excitedly. "The final answer is formed by the pattern of all the sections we have already solved." The glowing lights themselves are spelling out the master solution. The team quickly decoded the light pattern and found that it contained the final sequence needed to activate the archway. As they input the master solution into the central control mechanism, the entire gateway began to glow with brilliant light and slowly started to open. The archway opened with a deep rumbling sound that echoed across the ancient ruins. Brilliant light poured out from the chamber beyond as the massive stone doors slowly swung inward. The team stood in amazement as they realized they had successfully solved the greatest puzzle in galactic history. Beyond the archway lay a vast circular chamber with walls that reached up into darkness. The walls were lined with thousands of crystalline structures that glowed with soft internal light. Each crystal contained swirling patterns of information that seemed to move and dance within the transparent material. "It is a library," Dr. Vexthari whispered in awe. Her skin had turned a deep silver color which indicated profound reverence and respect. The ancient civilization stored their entire knowledge base in these information crystals. Jake walked carefully into the chamber, followed by the alien experts. The air inside felt different somehow, as if it contained more energy than normal. Atmosphere. The crystalline structures hummed quietly with stored data, and occasionally bright flashes of light would travel between different crystals like thoughts moving through a vast brain. Dr. Kethmorin approached one of the crystal formations and extended his mathematical sensors toward it. "The information density is incredible," he reported. "Each crystal contains more data than our most advanced storage systems. There must be millions of years' worth of accumulated knowledge preserved here." Professor Zilanatha was examining the linguistic patterns displayed within the crystals. "I can see mathematical formulas and star charts and biological diagrams and philosophical texts," she said with excitement in her musical voice. "This civilization documented everything they learned about the universe." Commander Thexpol was studying the strategic layout of the chamber. "The crystals are arranged in specific patterns that allow for efficient information retrieval and cross-referencing," he observed. "This is not just a storage facility, it is an interactive learning system designed to help visitors understand complex concepts." As the team explored deeper into the chamber, they discovered that the crystals responded to their presence. When Jake approached a particular formation, the crystals began displaying images and symbols that seemed designed to communicate with him. The ancient civilization had created an adaptive interface that could adjust its presentation based on the intelligence and capabilities of whoever was accessing the information. "Look at this," Jake called out as he found a crystal cluster near the center of the chamber. The crystals were displaying images that showed the puzzle-solving process they had just completed. They recorded everything that happened with the archway puzzle. "They have been watching us solve their test." Dr. Vexthari joined Jake at the central display. "These crystals contain information about the puzzle creators themselves," she said as she studied the swirling patterns. "The ancient civilization called themselves the Puzzle Weavers, and they believed that intelligence should be measured by creativity and problem-solving ability rather than technological advancement or military power." The crystals revealed that the Puzzle Weavers had been an incredibly advanced species that had mastered science and technology millions of years ago. But instead of using their knowledge to build weapons or conquer other worlds, they had focused on creating challenges and puzzles that would test the mental abilities of future civilizations. They were teachers, Jake realized as he watched the crystal displays. They built this entire library as a gift for whoever was smart enough to solve their entrance puzzle. They wanted to share their knowledge with beings who could appreciate the value of creative thinking. The team spent hours exploring the crystal library and learning about the puzzle Weaver civilization. They discovered advanced scientific theories that were thousands of years ahead of current galactic knowledge. They found artistic techniques that created beauty beyond anything previously imagined. They uncovered philosophical insights that provided new ways of understanding existence itself. But the most important discovery came when Jake found a crystal formation that contained the puzzle, Weaver's final message to future civilizations. The message explained that the puzzle weavers had eventually evolved beyond physical existence and had become beings of pure thought and creativity. Before they transcended, they had left behind their knowledge library as a test and gift for whatever species might follow in their footsteps. The greatest mysteries of the universe yield not to the most learned, but to those who remember that wisdom can be found in play, Jake read from the crystal display. Intelligence is not about knowing all the answers, but about finding joy in asking the right questions. Dr. Vexthari was deeply moved by this message. The puzzle weavers understood something that we have forgotten, she said. Advanced civilizations should not just accumulate knowledge. They should also maintain the curiosity and playfulness that makes learning enjoyable. When the team returned to the Nexus Prime, they immediately transmitted their findings to the Galactic Consortium headquarters. The discovery of the Puzzle Weaver Library sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Scientists and philosophers and educators from thousands of different worlds requested permission to study the Crystal Archives. But the most significant impact was on how other species viewed humanity. Jake's success in solving the ancient puzzle demonstrated that humans possessed a unique type of intelligence that complemented the analytical abilities of other galactic civilizations. Dr. Vexthari submitted an official report recommending that humans be included in all future archaeological expeditions. Human pattern recognition abilities and creative problem-solving skills provide perspectives that pure logic and advanced computing cannot match, she wrote. The discovery of the Puzzle Weaver Library would not have been possible without human insight. The Galactic Consortium agreed and established the Human Puzzle Division as a new branch of their archaeological department. Jake was promoted to Senior Puzzle Analyst and given authority to recruit other humans who showed aptitude for creative problem-solving. Jake's Crossword app became standard equipment for archaeological expeditions throughout the galaxy. Other human puzzle games like word searches and logic problems were also added to the official exploration toolkit. What had once been considered simple entertainment was now recognized as valuable scientific instrumentation. The success of the Puzzle Weaver expedition led to the discovery of similar puzzle-based challenges on other worlds. Many ancient civilizations had apparently used games and mental challenges as ways to test and teach intelligence. Human puzzle-solving abilities proved essential for unlocking these discoveries. Jake received the Galactic Consortium's Medal of Discovery, which was the highest honor given to explorers and scientists. During the award ceremony, he spoke about the importance of maintaining childlike curiosity and playfulness even when dealing with serious scientific challenges. The puzzle weavers taught us that the most sophisticated problems sometimes require the simplest solutions, Jake said in his acceptance speech. We should never be too proud or too serious to learn from games and puzzles and play. Intelligence without creativity is just computation, but intelligence with imagination can solve any mystery the universe presents. The Crystal Library continued to provide new discoveries for years afterward. The Puzzle Weaver knowledge helped advance galactic civilization in countless ways. New technologies were developed, diseases were cured, and philosophical questions that had puzzled scholars for millennia were finally answered. But perhaps the most valuable lesson from the Puzzle Weavers was their reminder that learning should be enjoyable. Educational institutions throughout the galaxy began incorporating games and puzzles into their curricula. The serious business of science and exploration was enriched by the playful spirit of human curiosity. Jake continued working with the Human Puzzle Division and helped solve dozens of other ancient mysteries. But he never forgot that his greatest discovery had come not from advanced training or sophisticated equipment, but from a simple crossword puzzle app during his lunch break. Sometimes the most important insights come from the most unexpected places.